Hello, this is Gabriel, custodian of Watchman Privacy. Listen, I know why you're here. You're looking to escape the technocratic apparatuses that you see slowly enveloping you and restraining your freedom. In that case, the best thing you can do before listening to this episode is to visit escapethetechnocracy.com to purchase my privacy course on getting off the grid. This course is for everyone. It's the best privacy tutorial on the internet, and our shop has other things as well, books and toolkits and consulting, and we accept Monero and actual privacy throughout the checkout process. I do not take sponsors. I'm not part of a company. I don't have someone to answer to. So unlike 99.9% of the people who talk about their subject, you can know that I'm pursuing the unmitigated truth as I see it. Go support you and me at escapethetechnocracy.com. I want to thank all of you who recently wrote in for this Bitcoin questions session. We've got a lot of emails to get through, so let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsors. Thanks first to SkipIt. SkipIt lets you collect Bitcoin transactions, donations, and come off as a Bitcoin proponent without having to worry about handling any Bitcoin yourself. Simply sign up for the service, a straightforward process that involves some basic info, a 3D selfie and your fingerprints, and then post your SkipIt link to your platform. Now your listeners, customers, or acolytes can pay you Bitcoin, which we immediately convert into one of 40 currencies on a Bitcoin exchange for the highest price, and then deposit into your trusted bank account. Marketing to a Bitcoin audience has never been easier. Say goodbye to clumsy private keys and say hello to SkipIt. Thank you also to Labyrinthine Solutions multi-signature service. As Bitcoiners, we know that we don't want to trust anyone, and that includes ourselves. We've all heard the stories of Bitcoiners sleepwalking to their hardware wallet, accidentally signing a transaction, and losing that Bitcoin forever. We also know that Bitcoin transactions are permanent. We love that aspect, though Labyrinthine is here to solve that problem. Labyrinthine uses a 16 of 31 multi-sig setup to ensure that you will never have your Bitcoin taken away from you without a very deliberate and debilitating process. Sign up for our service for a modest $300 per month fiat only, and we'll guide you through the 32-month process of creating 31 separate keys spread around the world. By having 16 keys in your possession, you greatly reduce the odds of someone finding all of them. You might get tortured or $5 wrench for buying your Bitcoin on a KYC exchange that is sure to get breached, but thanks to multi-sig, they'll never have instant access to your funds. Protecting your Bitcoin has never been more rewarding. And even if you somehow lose or compromise a majority of these keys, just remember, every lost sat is still a win for the greater Bitcoin ecosystem by increasing scarcity. There's truly no way to lose with Labyrinthine Solutions. Finally, thank you to Fahrenheit Exchange, the future of Bitcoin DCA investing. Tired of waking up hodling every morning and having to deal with Bitcoin's monumental price fluctuations? Deposit some of your Bitcoin with Fahrenheit and we'll invest it for you, ensuring you earn a yield that practically guarantees profit during the nastiest of bear markets. Withdraw up to 2% of your total funds at any time with advance notice, no questions asked. Fahrenheit is a Bitcoiner's approach to fractional reserve banking, ensuring that the failures of traditional finance happen again only under our careful watch. And for Bitcoin influencers, get 6-day advance notice of exchange collapse and a robo-email service to deflect any pesky followers inquiring about their complete loss. Fahrenheit Exchange, reforming and reinventing the banking system with a Bitcoiner's touch. All right, on to the show. The first email is from Ishmael. Ishmael says, "Hi Gabriel, I was recently driving around my country listening to a lot of mainstream Bitcoin podcasts. One of the guests mentioned the book he wrote, and I checked Amazon to find the book was exactly $21.21. Incredible. This was not purposeful from the author. There was an Amazon-controlled sale of 7% that decreased it to that exact price at this exact moment. By the way, 7 divides into 21 perfectly. I want to say I was amazed, and truly I was in a sense. But since getting into Bitcoin, I find that the world has opened up for me. It's like I'm able to look past the veil. Bitcoin really has elevated my consciousness. I've been an atheist myself for a long time, but after discovering Bitcoin, I don't rule out anything anymore. I instantly purchased the book from Amazon. I try to support the Bitcoin community and avoid the fiat mindset every opportunity I can. Also, the cashback from my Prime credit card is awesome. I highly recommend it. As I was completing the checkout process, I had this thought that Bitcoin is so sacred that sometimes I have difficulty thinking about it in itself. Instead, I find myself thinking of Bitcoin podcasts and their ideas as a kind of intermediary between me and the divine, so to speak. Like it would be almost wrong or inadequate for me to think of Bitcoin itself. There's a long tradition of this in religions, you know? And then it struck me. Without Bitcoin, there wouldn't even be Bitcoin podcasts. Isn't that amazing to think about? That Bitcoin is the all-sustaining unmoved mover, to use Aristotelian terminology. That which without there would not be. Bitcoin is truly amazing. So my question is, do you think Bitcoin podcasts might be divine intervention? Thanks for the email, Ishmael. That is pretty deep, and I think you said it far better than I ever could. And I think you answered your own question. But do I think that Bitcoin podcasts are divine intervention? Yes, I do. Just like God casting Lucifer to earth for it to become his new domain was divine intervention upon the world. Thanks for the question, Ishmael. Second question comes from Michael. He asks, hey, I recently came across your podcast. I need to call you out on something. Oh boy. You tell people to spend their Bitcoin, or as Miguel Seymour says, negating the inner storehouses of the self. Bitcoin is energy. It's meant to be stored, not transferred. And you suggesting that people get rid of it is literally killing them. You're committing a genocide. I cannot put it more strongly than that. You need to stop. Well, Michael, look, I can see you feel very strongly about this. I understand your perspective, certainly, and I'm actually coming around to it. And in fact, I've had a thought recently, having looked into this important question and studied intensely the history of money. After all, you know what they say, the rich think of sometimes of money, Bitcoiners think of nothing else. You know, in ancient times, the people who discovered gold as a potential money didn't spend it for the first 500 years. Did you know that? They knew that gold was going to increase in value later on, and it never occurred to them that they might want it because its value might lie in someone else wanting it and thus it being a medium of exchange. No, this was true, pure love. They loved gold for what it was, for the energy involved in creating it. That was the real value of gold. And many of them forged it into golden calves that became their household deities, and so they would never be tempted to spend it in useful chunks. I think we have Bitcoin Pizza Day completely backward, and I'm glad to see that some people are coming around to laugh at it and demonize the guy more recently. It was a total mistake of him to spend Bitcoin on pizza, thus giving it its first value, inextricably connected to its ability as a medium of exchange. Had Pizza Guy simply held on to that Bitcoin, of course we know he would be fabulously rich right now, but he would have proved that Bitcoin's value is completely unrelated to whether someone else might want it. Now, Michael, you see you've completely got me on board with what you're saying. If we just wait, if we show that time preference that Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone has taught us, and we wait for tyrannical governments to adopt it, and for regulatory blessing, and for the masses of the world to adopt Bitcoin as a store of value, and for all the tools to transact in Bitcoin to become banned, more custodial or clunky, only then should we feel safe to use this Bitcoin. Third question comes from Robert. Robert says, since I discovered Bitcoin, I've been on an all-out carnivore diet. I never would have discovered the idea of dieting or health or eating if I hadn't discovered Bitcoin. You know, the concept of eating is a kind of technology, just like Bitcoin. I eat 21 steaks every 3 days, that's 7 steaks per day, and wash them down with raw milk. I don't let the government tell me what is healthy. Did you know the government is a kind of technology? Or maybe it's an anti-technology. Anyway, I forgot where I was going, but I just feel very passionately about what I'm saying. Well, Robert, thanks for that. You know, it's a very spiritual observation. Before I discovered Bitcoin, I never really tried to overcomplexify things that were absolutely not in need of overcomplexifying. I just took so many things for granted, and I'm all the poorer for it, no doubt. For example, I took time for granted. The blockchain, or of course the time chain, maybe reflect on what time really is. It's the period in between two mind blocks. Amazing, and yet so simple. I had also never reflected on truth whatsoever until I encountered the truest statement imaginable, that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Ever. And almost all of them in the hands of a few people and entities. It makes me emotional just thinking this. And I had this dream lately. I'm wandering out in space, reflecting on the moment that Satoshi came up with Bitcoin. And as I get to the very center of the universe, there's a warm light. It's welcoming me. Its origin is the only word that can describe it. Origin. And I have this calming idea. I wonder if God hard-coded the number 21 million into the center of the universe for centrifugal stability. And there it is, the number 21 million, as clear as a crisp spring morning. 2-1 in the exact center of the cosmos. I also forgot where I was going, but I hope you'll write a book on that. I'll write the foreword and we can show the crap out of it at Bitcoin conferences. Fourth question comes from Benedict, who asks, I used to be a fan of Citadel Dispatch podcast. Can you think of a poem that adequately captures this show in its current form? Interesting question, Benedict. No, I can't, but hold on, let me type this into ChatGPT. What is a poem that adequately captures the podcast Citadel Dispatch? Here we go. Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. I'll read it. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Fifth question comes from Peter. Peter asks, I'm a big fan of your show. I've been working on Bitcoin related things for years myself. In fact, I've made it a career and have recommended to tens of millions of people to give up everything they have to get into Bitcoin. But I have to say, I actually don't understand what seed phrases are. Can you explain them, please? Great question, Peter. I have to admit, I don't actually know myself, but the truth is that you don't really need to. That's the great thing about Bitcoin. It kind of speaks to you at a level beyond the rational. There are so many smart people in the space that know all this stuff that I can pass on the smart knowing of things to others. But really, there's an osmosis of knowledge that happens in the Bitcoin psychosphere. It's like a time chain of love and understanding is how I think about it. You simply stack more of it every day, open up your soul, and let it infuse inside of you. You really don't have to understand anything about the technology of Bitcoin to appreciate it and to recommend it to others as a panacea for every ill in society. Just the conjuring up of it, the raw emotions of it swirling around in the heart, in the gut. I think of William Butler Yeats' poem, "Now that my ladder's gone, I must lie down where all the ladders start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart." Peter, I know, or rather we feel it, like a regurgitation of the soul. Thanks for the question, Peter, and also I did get your email about your losses after a recent collapse of an exchange that was mentioned on my show. All I can say regarding my happening to get my funds out a few days before that, I accidentally logged in and went through the 5 steps on screen to withdraw my funds. Total fortunate accident, but I promise you I will be demanding full answers about what happened, and I do read every email. In the meantime, please check out Fahrenheit Exchange and use my code NEXTTIME for a sign-up bonus. Hopefully that will alleviate some of your pain, and just to reiterate, I will be demanding answers. Next question comes from Javier. He says, you keep claiming that El Salvador is better for having adopted Bitcoin. I don't see it. We haven't adopted Bitcoin. Regular people here don't want Bitcoin. The price fluctuations make it impossible to use for business. It doesn't fit our culture. Anyone who does use it is using a custodial wallet. Transaction fees are prohibitive. Government approval is anti-Bitcoin. Lightning is overly complex unless you use a purely custodial solution. It's a travesty of Bitcoin and entirely at odds with it. Stop imposing your technology on us. Listen, Javier, first of all, let me say I respect your culture greatly. I'm currently recording this show on the unconquered land of the Amish-Kakula native tribe, and I fully acknowledge that it was unjustly taken from people just like you. And we don't have to ruminate on how your DNA tests show that you're 60% Spanish and 40% not. In other words, you're more conquistador than not. And I love your cultural traditions, your food, and El Sal's contributions to the world of... So anyway, what I think you're missing, and I'm not trying to come off as being neo-colonial, never. But you really do need this Western technology of Bitcoin shoved down your throat to fix all your problems. We know how to fix you. We're happy to come down there. We're already sending people to come down there and take up your land and drive up real estate prices to show you why you need to be using Bitcoin. We're prepared to refuse tips to waiters unless they download a Bitcoin wallet and to gentrify things up a bit, all in the spirit of Bitcoin. But I know deep down that all this is for the better for El Salvador. El Salvador meaning savior. We are the saviors. And I've been in El Salvador with my gringo Bitcoin friends looking at the beautiful jungle sunsets from the safety of a gated community, and the same feeling washes over me every time. Bitcoin fixes this. Bitcoin fixes this. Thank you, Javier. Stay strong out there. We will be back. And now let's take a break to hear a word from our sponsor. Many thanks to Democratize Bitcoin ETF for sponsoring the show and ensuring we're never critical of anti-Bitcoin custodial solutions and fake Bitcoin-like products. Do you want theoretical access to the strongest property rights in history without the hassle of dealing with ownership yourself? Check out Democratize Bitcoin ETF. It's the best way to get exposure to the world's most popular cryptocurrency. Visit the website link in the description to sign up. As of early 2024, the US government has given companies such as Democratize its full regulatory blessing to issue Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ensuring that everyone can now take part in a decentralized cypherpunk future and pursue the real goal of separation of money and state. Never has P2P freedom money been more accessible. Democratize Bitcoin ETF. Let us specialize in owning so you can specialize in winning. Next question comes from FNGU_NoKYC1337_ who says, why is no one talking about Bitcoin's privacy or lack thereof? Bitcoin used to be a cypherpunk tool used across the dark web and across the internet. In fact, Bitcoiners pointed towards its use by Silk Road, and WikiLeaks is proof that it works as advertised. Today, every single person on the dark web is using Monero, just about. The blockchain is full of doxed UTXOs with real names attached to them. Roman Sterlingov is facing many years in prison because of this transparent blockchain and the corrupt chain analytics companies that have latched onto it. Fewer people accept Bitcoin in 2024 than in 2014, so there are fewer ways to even spend your Bitcoin. CoinJoin coins are often blocked from exchanges, showing very clearly that Bitcoin is not fungible. Most statistics of shops that accept crypto have Monero and other coins altcoins pretty close to Bitcoin and closing the gap daily, despite having a fraction of the mindshare, I'm beginning to think that Bitcoin truly was hijacked by the NGU crowd who carefully excluded anyone who wanted to promote spending attributes like private transactions or higher block sizes. Mainstream Bitcoin is as propagandish as the Federal Reserve. Well, first of all, reader, we're big on free speech here, but if you mention an altcoin on the show again, I will ban you. Now, with that said, I can refute what you've said in 4 points. First, no one said that Bitcoin is a spending tool. Here's what you people don't understand. By the time we need to spend it years down the road, when one Satoshi is valuable enough to make you a god on earth, all of the developers who have left for other projects because they think Bitcoin is betraying the cause will return once they see that Bitcoin is clearly a better money. Again, a money proves itself when banking institutions own large amounts of it to prop up the fiat price. It's not something you spend. Second, we have Lightning, period. Lightning fixes this, and no doubt something will fix Lightning too. Third, no one would trust Bitcoin if you couldn't see the transaction amounts. It's pretty simple. Transparency is what makes for civilization. We're not going to trust things we can't see. How could we vet the supply? And look, I don't understand anything about Bitcoin and simply trust that it's working at a deep cryptographic level, but for the average person, they're not going to invest in a Bitcoin ETF if the ledger wasn't fully transparent, or trust that someone else trusts that it is. Look, it needs to be transparent. And finally, Satoshi didn't care about privacy. Whoever he or they or it was, that's pretty obvious. Why else would Satoshi have created a transparent blockchain? Stop your conspiratorial disinformation. All right, let's just move on. These privacy weirdos following too closely in the footsteps of Satoshi really pissed me off. Bone Crusher 14 asks, have you noticed that only a few podcasts out of the dozens of Bitcoin podcasts have even mentioned the arrest of the Sam? All right, listen. I have conflicting business obligations that mean I can't read further into that last questions, and I left my balls at home next to my moral compass, so I'm going to instead end on my own thoughts. Let me summarize for the 10,000th time. Bitcoin is freedom. It's given us for the first time in human history intangible form, exposure to the theory that we can transact with whoever we want. It's taught us to cut out third parties, to avoid the fiat rot that has harmed our relation to our fellow human and to our environment. I almost even stopped kicking my dog after getting into Bitcoin. Bitcoin taught us that as long as we can wake up each morning and look at the price of Bitcoin, that we don't need to see any other news or care about any other person on earth. Is Bitcoin still running? More importantly, is the price still high? Then, life is good. Before Bitcoin, humanity did not have true serenity. Bitcoin teaches us humility. Now that I'm accidentally rich, I don't have to worry about why just about everyone else is wrong. I can sit on this platform talking about mundane, trivial things that not even my parents would have listened to me talk about before I mistakenly hit the jackpot, and people will respect the misleading information I have to offer. And lest we forget, Bitcoin has transformed the world. By a tiny percentage of human beings holding claims to internet money and custodial accounts, we have started the process of completely severing ties with all the chaos that the fiat system has wrought. War? Impossible on a Bitcoin standard. Racism? Bitcoin solves this. I read about it on a website just today. Obesity and cancer? Only products of a fiat food system. And I know when I say these radical things that disbelieve in human nature that I'm parroting almost verbatim the Marxist critical theory that itself got us to this point. But this is different. We've never given real sound money like Bitcoin a chance. Not a real chance. But now, comrades, we have an opportunity for real change. For revolution. And in conclusion, a word from our sponsor. Thanks to Exposurely Bitcoin Exchange, formerly known as Goose, for sponsoring the show. Exposurely's proposition is simple. First, we have the fastest account creation in the business. Simply sign over a transfer from your DNA company to us and we'll vet you in seconds. Once you're in, you'll have access to the lowest fees in the industry. Buy your Bitcoin for an excellent rate, let us hold them, or transfer them to your own wallet. Exposurely. Keeping things simple. Must access Exposurely without a VPN or any proxies. No customers from Russia, Palestine, Oman, Africa, Asia, or any soon-to-be sanctioned countries allowed. All customers from such countries will have their Bitcoin seized immediately. No OFAC-sanctioned UTXOs or any transactions within 15 hops of OFAC-sanctioned UTXOs are allowed on the platform or off the platform within a certain amount of hops. Any guilty users will be reported to the proper authorities and have their account shut down immediately and funds seized. UTXOs must have no history of coin joins in the last 4 hops. Your compliance keeps us going and is much appreciated.